welcome back. I've got Brett Trembly on the line. Brett, how are you?
Excellent, Michael. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Glad to have you here. We're going to talk about assistants, and I talk with people all the time about virtual assistants and admin help and all of that, but we're going to really niche down depending on what part of the world you're in, and we're going to talk about the legal aspect of things. So share a little bit about the work that you're doing, and then we'll dive right in.
Sure. We could talk about the legal aspect, but it's really just service-based business aspect. So by trade, I am a lawyer. I own a law firm. I still do. I still operate it. We have 24 employees. I'm the sole owner, for now. And so a lot of people, when they venture off and do something else, I mean, let's be honest, because I was this way one time too. They're distracting themselves from the main business because the main business maybe is not going so well, or they're frustrated, etc. It's like a lawyer that wants to be a mediator, but he's splitting hairs trying to get business on both ends. So law firm was successful, but it wasn't always successful. I had to learn the hard way, but at least thankfully I learned that I couldn't do everything myself. And so I started hiring, but I was hiring all domestically. And my now business partner at Get Staffed Up met somebody who had an assistant in a different part of the world. So he dove in and figured out how to recruit in other parts of the world, and wanted to turn in the business. And I said, look, here's my idea for what the business would look like. And a few months later, we were doing it together. So now when people do get the message, when they understand that they can't do everything themselves and they need to delegate, the other side of that equation is, okay, but how much does it cost, right? There's making the decision and the realization, and then how much does it cost? And when you're hiring domestically, it can be very expensive. Turnover is largely expensive, and it's hard and people get discouraged. And so what we found out, and what I love about this so much, is the cost savings that we're helping people realize. Most of our marketing is focused on lawyers, but we are really helping people save so much on payroll, which helps their businesses grow, and then they can hire more domestically, which they wouldn't have. So I believe we're creating jobs both domestically and internationally, and helping the global economy.
That's a beautiful approach to it too, because I know a lot of times people will say, I'm going to use some overseas help because the cost difference is pretty dramatic depending on the type of role that you're doing. But the fact that it's creating opportunities both stateside and across the globe is a wonderful approach, and just making things better for everybody. It's a win-win across the board. So one of the things, if you're, I know a lot of startup entrepreneurs listen to this show, and they get frustrated and they have difficulty kind of letting go. They think, well, I can do it. And it's like, well, if you're doing everything, you're not accomplishing anything, because you're doing everything. You're like a cook that's the waiter, that's the busboy, that's the bookkeeper, and all that stuff. You're not going to accomplish anything. You need to work in your sweet spot where you're really good. So what are some common things that you say to people that really get them to recognize this is crucial for me? I'm foolish for not utilizing your service.
Yeah, Michael, that's the exact analogy that I use, which is, it's like, which restaurant do you want to go to? The one where the guy that owns it is also the chef, is also the waiter, is also the host, is also the promoter, doing everything? Or do you want to go where somebody figured out, I'm going to hire the best chefs money can hire, and I'm going to get out of the way? What's a better food product? And then I'm going to hire the best, training program for my wait staff, so that the experience is the best, and I'm going to get out of the way. Of course, that's the restaurant you want to go to, because look, there's nothing wrong with hustling. We've all bootstrapped, and that's how I started the law firm. But you've got to, if you're going to grow, right? Because the guy that's doing everything himself, it's admirable at first, but it's exhausting. You cannot argue to me that, well, I just want to go to this, be the one guy that does everything themselves. Something else is happening. So if your cup is full and you keep pouring into it, that means it's spilling out the sides. You're losing something somewhere, and it could be your personal health. And I know that's something very important to you. Could be your mental health and burnout. And, after the adrenaline wears off of a few months, I certainly got burnt out. Starting my law firm was exciting and it was fun, and I was up late and doing all the fun stuff except working on legal work, which actually pays the bills, right? I was building the websites and starting to join networking groups, and I was, started my own law firm. I mean, frankly, starting your own business can be rather easy nowadays. It's actually being successful and growing the business, which is difficult. And there's not enough resources. So, what we're talking about today is just one of them. But you will hit a point where you're either working 80 to 100 hours a week and you're not seeing your family, or you're not having an opportunity to have a personal life, and you just can't. And delegating allows other people to come into your world and learn from you and grow and get promoted and elevate themselves. So I never understand when people look at that as a dirty word. Is it, I'm giving all the stuff I don't want to do. Somebody else is glad to, to do those things, just like I was once upon a time.
And also, you're doing things that and we're not good at everything. So we're not good at graphic design. Some of us may be great at marketing. Some of us may suck at it. End of the day, you want to make sure that you're doing what you can do, that you enjoy and you're really good at. And by delegating or hiring a VA or outsourcing things, you're giving work to those people that absolutely love working on that. And it shows. And the quality of what you're building by using these virtual assistants or outsourcing whatever work is going to be better than what you would produce. And nothing against anybody. I'm
Uh-huh.
saying the stuff that you're producing is not good, but it's going to be better because they're operating in their ideal space to allow you to operate in your ideal space. And the thing of it is, and this is something that entrepreneurs struggle with, but they eventually catch on, the successful ones, is we are our own bottleneck as far as how we spend our time. I'd rather spend time on generating revenue than spending time on accounting for it. And
Absolutely.
my original career was accounting. Okay, I used to love it. Now it's like, oh, I
Yeah.
despise it. It's like reformed smokers. People that used to smoke, then they quit, and they're like the most vocal against
Yeah.
it. I'm not being, I'm not picking on accountants because I speak at some of their events, so I definitely
Hmm.
don't want to get that out there in the ether. But at the end of the day, it's like I don't enjoy doing that work, and I know there are people that do. So it's like, here, take it, make it look pretty, minimize the tax burden, please, and do whatever you can. But at the end of the day, it's focusing on the things that you're good at, and by doing that, it allows you to grow, and you can actually take on more business of what you're good at, which grows your business because all of a sudden you're a larger entity and you can do more as a larger entity than if you're just this one person trying to cook and do all this stuff. And going back to the restaurant real quick, would you rather eat at a Michelin rated restaurant or eat food that tastes like a Michelin tire? Make your choice.
Right.
Yep.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, look, sometimes the best food is that one guy on the street corner, right? But that's you enjoying that food. That's not we're not looking at what that guy's life looks like, who's just basically every day doing his own thing and a slave to that business. The business owns that person. If he doesn't cook that day, he or she doesn't make money. So look, what we do is when the light bulb does go off, we help people with what we call administrative virtual assistants. So this could be receptionist, intake coordinator, in the legal world, a legal assistant, but you're talking about personal assistant, executive assistant, client happiness coordinator, all of those little spots where you know that there are gaps in your pipeline, in your systems, and you need some excess capacity. But again, you don't want to just go hire a bunch of expensive people to do tasks that frankly are, $8 to $10 an hour tasks. And so, and marketing assistants, that's the other thing we do. I mean, talk about marketing and being a visionary. We all have 100 ideas before breakfast, but then they all get all those ideas get stacked up as if they're a sheet of paper, and you just had piles and piles on your desk, and you never get around to them. When you have a full-time virtual assistant that's your marketing assistant, that's able to research and then tackle those projects, it is the biggest weight off your shoulders, because suddenly you can start to see which marketing works and which doesn't, and you have a bigger wherewithal to find out what works and what doesn't. Because when you have, I had a girl that I still care deeply about in terms of her, and we love her. I couldn't make her position work at my firm. We were paying, almost $60,000 a year for a marketing coordinator. And the thing that most people don't realize is you have to do a multiple of about 30 to 40% of what it actually costs you as a business owner to have an employee, when you have the withholding and the taxes and the overhead and all of those other things. So I was constantly like, we got to get more from this person. And when you're able to have somebody full time, because again, Michael, we only do full time. There are a lot of different staffing companies out there, and they're selling 20 hours of this person here and 5 here, and they're playing that time Tetris, and they're trying to make it fit together. We don't have split loyalty. We have our base price, or I should say the most popular price is $18.50 a month. Okay, so we're talking like 20 grand per year all in. You pay us, we're the legal employer, and we pay the person that eventually you end up with, which you're in charge of who you get to hire anyway. We just do all the recruiting. So when you're paying somebody that, type of salary for 40 hours a week, I mean, you can just get so much done for such little cost. You can barely hire a marketing vendor for that, to do your website and some social media for $18.50 a month. I mean, it really becomes a no-brainer. But we don't compete on price. We compete on finding the best of the best. We have fabulous, wonderful people, educated, energetic, appreciative. They just happen to be born in a different part of the world. So why not take advantage of that?
It gives them an opportunity to find work. It's I don't want to say even the playing field, but it's opened up opportunities for people all over the planet to be able to use their creative skill set and not have to relocate. And especially during this pandemic, not a lot of people are moving around to different countries. I know in the real estate industry, a lot of people are moving around because I talked with somebody in the mortgage industry, and the mortgage papers are up to here as far as applications are concerned. So a lot of people are moving, but as far as relocating to different countries and all of that, that's not something that's going on to the same level as we saw probably before the pandemic. So it gives them that flexibility to live where they want to live and do the kind of work that they enjoy doing. And it just makes things so much easier. And again, I can't hammer this home enough, people. This, when you offload things that you're not completely good at, it allows you to work on what you really dreamed about when you launched your business. You didn't dream about spreadsheets and accounting and filings and quote presentations and things. Like you dreamed about doing the work. And when you do and hire somebody to offload all of those administrative tasks, you get to do the work that you want to do, and you're going to get better at it. And then those clients are going to tell their friends, and all of a sudden you're going to have more clients and more clients and more clients. And then the conversation changes from, okay, yes, I need to hire more administrative people, but then you start saying, I need to find another version of me that can take on this client work as well, because I've got so much of it. All of a sudden, you've really grown your business, and it's easy to do. It takes time and takes effort and clarity, but and you mentioned this or alluded to it a couple of minutes ago, is when you offload all of that work, it gives you clarity to see things, because you wouldn't have the time to see it because you're up to here and trying to figure out, okay, do I tweet this? What's my social media plan for this? Okay, I got to come up with some new collateral for this, and offset that. Get somebody else to do that, and then that way you have the clarity of going, I see opportunities in this market or this market, and your business will grow a lot faster if you have that clarity.
Yeah, Michael, it's not called work and grow rich, right? It's called think and grow rich. And if you don't give yourself the time to think about the next moves in your business and what your business needs, and the freedom and the space to then capitalize on those opportunities because you're too busy. Look, my thing, you mentioned this earlier. So the way to get paid is to do the work and then send out the invoice, and then somebody pays your invoice, right? Like that's a system a lot of people use. So early on, I hated the invoicing part. So I would just not do it and leave it sitting there, just leaving money out on the street because I hated it. I didn't like it. I mean, a billing clerk that came in on Saturdays was one of the first people that I ever hired. I talk about my first hire, a law clerk, 30 hours a week in 2014. But then after that, I brought in a billing clerk too, because I just like, I hate this. Why not pay somebody a little bit of money to get this done? But it was such a hard lesson for me to learn. So I'm never judgmental when other people are stubborn or are not going, not making those decisions, and they're choosing, because life's about choices, right? They're choosing to make themselves miserable. Because if you don't have an assistant, you are an assistant. If you don't have a billing clerk, you are a billing clerk. If you don't have a marketing coordinator, you are a marketing coordinator, and you can't argue with those facts. So I was there. I get it. Thankfully, I started reading books and learning, and I just got fed up. Some people just have to have so much pain. They just say, heck with it. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to start hiring and see what I can do.
So what's one bit of advice as we get close to the end here that you would give people that are ready to do it, but they're not really sure what they want to delegate? They know they need to delegate something, but they're not really sure. And I'm sure you have an onboarding process to go through this, but I'd love to hear kind of a little bit about what that looks like.
Yeah. So when you say advice, that could be a million things, right? But you honed it in. So if you don't know what to delegate, write down everything you do. Just keep a time log of everything you do in a week. Home, and don't wait to the end of the day, because we always forget. Like they say, when you're capturing time, as lawyers live in that world, you miss 10% when you wait to the end of the day, and then you miss 30% when you wait to the end of the week. So just make a running list of everything you're doing that week. Doesn't matter. Just go through a normal week. Take 1 week, take 5 business days. And then at the end of the week, take different color highlighters. Highlight everything in a color you hate doing, and highlight everything in another color that, frankly, if you're being honest with yourself, is not making you a lot of money. I used to lick my own stamps and send my own faxes, back in 2011, and answer my own phones, everything else. Those are the things you should delegate first. It's the 80-20 rule. Only 20% of the things you're doing at any given time are probably making you money. And it's true even when you get rid of 80% and then you create like a new, Pareto principle. So you got to keep doing that exercise to see what the first thing you should get rid of. And you're going to come up with a lot when you do it that way.
It's a great example of it. And I also would throw in, and you probably suggest this as well, of, going through that exercise periodically. Don't do it just once.
Oh, for sure.
Do it a lot, minimum a couple times a year. A good colleague of mine, basically every 6 months, he sits down, looks at his calendar and all the things that he's done over the last 6 months, and he usually picks 2 or 3 things from there that he says he's never going to do again. And then he either offloads it or just stops doing it as a business or things like that. And what that does is it just really gets him fine-tuned and doing the things that he really enjoys to do. And it's made him successful in everything that he does. And, when he says, I'm launching a new venture, I'm like, of course you are. If you said you wouldn't, I was going to call and have, the police bring you into the, the mental health institution, because there's something definitely wrong with you. Because if you're not going to do something new, that's just not you. That's not your DNA. But
right.
But no, it's a wonderful exercise for people to go through things. So, but as we wrap up, one was the question I was going to ask you. Oh, this one. With, once the people, bring somebody on and they start working with them, is there anything that you see common errors as far as maybe some missteps in when they're working with a virtual assistant that could be avoided?
Yeah. It's not just a virtual assistant. This is a hiring and leadership problem across the board. You need very clear rules and guidelines for what that person's supposed to do. People, I'd say business owners who think that their employees don't want structure are insane, or they just don't get it. Like, you don't want to show up all day and wonder if you're doing well. Someone should be keeping score. That's why we keep scoring games, because if you're doing well or you're not. Are you ahead or are you behind? So what we suggest is building out a scorecard. It can be 5 to 7 things that somebody's in charge of every single day that week, and they fill out the scorecard. I mean, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's 20. We have, for example, on our website, we have scorecards that you can download for different types of positions, just as examples, for free. And that is like, okay, I did 20 posts on Instagram this week, 20 posts on Twitter. I made, 20 comments on LinkedIn. I added 30 comments on LinkedIn. I set up, the one speaking event I'm supposed to do. I put 3 Facebook posts. I was on a podcast. This is for the marketing assistant, right? All of these things done for you or for the business. And now you both know if that person's performing. So it's just a not just onboarding, but training and really taking the time to develop the position so that that person can be successful.
That's great. And I highly recommend people take a look at those scorecards because, yeah, I agree. People want to know how they're doing. And as an organization, you should provide that feedback to them. So,
yeah.
Brett, I've loved our conversation today. Where can people find out more about you and this awesome work that you're doing?
Absolutely, Michael. Getstaffedup.com is the easiest way. But for your listeners, if you go to getstaffedup.com/VIP, I think we only ask for 3, like name, email, maybe phone number, and it says, where did you hear about us? If somebody just types in breakfast leadership, then we will do a $250 discount off of the startup fee. So I mentioned it's $1,850 a month is the average price, flat fee. We do have a $1,750 startup fee, and with $250 off, and then another incentive that we tell people about on the sales call, you get rid of like 70% of that startup fee. I mean, we just want stake in the game. We want people that are serious about finding somebody great and about keeping somebody great. And we also have a replacement guarantee, Michael. So if your staffer through us ever quits, we replace them for free. And here in the U.S., I mentioned the high turnover problem. The hidden costs are almost $5,000 every time you want to hire somebody. So there's just benefits across the board.
That's awesome, and I'll definitely have that information in the show notes and agree. Yeah, the turnover time, the cost, and then the amount of time it takes to onboard a new employee and get them up to speed on things is catastrophic in the normal hiring of somebody world. So that's awesome you guys do that. So Brett, thank you again for your time today. Really appreciate this work that you're doing. It's amazing, and nothing but the best for your future.
Man, I'm so honored to be on, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.